I'm going to invite you all to take a seat. We're going to get started.
Okay.
Right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Rori Picker Neiss. I'm looking forward to meeting any of you that I have not yet met. I serve as the Senior Vice President for Community Relations at the Jewish Council for Public Affairs, and it is my profound honor to welcome you to JCPA Summit on Coalition and Bridge Building. I feel so incredibly energized just looking around this room at so many colleagues, friends, and partners who inspire me every day in this work that we do. It feels like an understatement to say that these past few weeks have been dark. And it feels especially insufficient when I could just as easily say that the past few months have felt dark and the past few years have felt dark. And so perhaps it's appropriate that we gather together this week when we read in the Torah from Parshat Beha'alotcha, the early part of the book of Numbers, that describes the establishment of the tabernacle and the consecration in the wilderness, and most specifically, the kindling of the lamps that remain lit perpetually. Our Torah portion begins, Daber el Aharon va'amarta elav baha'alotcha et hanerot el mul pnei hamenorah ya'iru shivat hanerot. God commanded Moses, saying, speak to Aaron and say to him, when you light the lamps, let the 7 lamps give light at the front of the lampstand. Interestingly, the Hebrew word that's used as the verb with regard to the light is the name of this week's Torah portion, Beha'alotcha, which literally means when you elevate. The commandment isn't merely to kindle the lights, it's to raise them up. Because in moments of our greatest darkness, sparking a flame isn't merely an act of aspiration, it's the greatest form of rebellion. And it's not only the light that rises up, but all of us who see it and experience it. Every one of you is here today because you are the ones who kindle the lights in our communities. Through the relationships you nurture, the education you lead, the spaces you create, and the consistency with which you show up even on the hardest days, you have chosen to answer a sacred call, to elevate others, to bring light into darkness, to create communities where people feel seen, safe, and connected. And nothing about that work is easy. We gather here this morning at the Capitol Jewish Museum, a site that was meant to be a place of memory, of resilience, of storytelling, a space dedicated to preserving Jewish history and honoring the best parts of us. And now this space has been desecrated by violence, hate, and tragedy. Today, as we come together to renew old friendships, to forge new partnerships, to plot new paths forward, we hold in our hearts Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgram, who were murdered here just 3 weeks ago. We hold all those who were injured and impacted by the attack here at the museum, as well as the terror attack in Boulder, and in all of our communities that are living with heightened fear and anxiety. And we hold one another, all of us who are leading in these communities, who are the source of strength and resilience, but who need the strength and resilience ourselves. Let's take a moment of silence to remember those that we have lost and those in need of healing. Like Aaron lighting the menorah, today we respond not with despair, but with light. The menorah wasn't lit once and left. It was rekindled each and every day. It was a perpetual light precisely because people worked tirelessly and at all hours of the day to ensure that it was so. And in the same way, we recommit daily to the values of justice, of peace, of memory, and of courage. We honor our Jewish story by building communities rooted in dignity and love, by standing up against hate, and by making sure Jewish spaces remain spaces of joy, learning, and pride. We gather here today not to mourn, but to spark new connections, to spark new ideas, to spark new inspiration, to spark the strength we need to return to our communities and keep the flame alive. Thank you for being part of this sacred calling. Thank you for being bearers of light. And may the light we kindle here today burn ever brighter, illuminating the path forward, guiding our communities with courage and compassion, and reminding us that even in the darkest of times, we are never without the power to shine. And with that, I want to welcome up our board chair, Leslie Dannin Rosenthal.
Thank you, Rory, for starting us off with such beautiful and important words of Torah. And if you want more of this, you can join Rory next fall when she restarts the webinar we've been offering on the Torah of community relations. It's meant for all of our community professionals and lay leaders. It's part of what we at JCPA are happy to share with you, our partners in the field. It is so wonderful to see so many of you here this morning, and we are grateful that each of you chose to be here at this time, in this place, at this moment. And in the moment in which we find ourselves, it is more crucial than ever to ground ourselves in the Torah values which inform community relations. For me, the work of community relations rests on the most fundamental of Jewish values, that of seeing every person as made in the image of God. This belief in the intrinsic value of every human also is at the heart of the aspirations of American democracy. In order to strengthen and defend American Jews, we must also strengthen and defend American democracy, and our work is not done until and unless all in America are safe. Today, we'll have the opportunity to learn from outstanding leaders in the field about so many of the pressing issues we face in the work of community relations, and we will share practical advice about how exactly we meet this moment, not in fear, but in partnership with each other in the Jewish community and with the people beyond the Jewish world who are ready to work with us. I'm so grateful for the work of the lay and professional committee that helped put this event together. As I put this event together. And they've spent so much time organizing this event, and I really am grateful. It was a real commitment between lay and professional, and people have been here since early this morning and yesterday also, so thank you for that. And we are deeply grateful to the leadership and the staff of the Capitol Jewish Museum, who have been so helpful to us despite the weeks of strain. Part of the joy of being the board chair at JCPA is getting to work with people who want to share and care deeply about sharing the vision of a world in which Jewish communities and all communities live with freedom and dignity. And no one lives that vision every day more than our CEO, Amy Spitalnick. It's my pleasure to call Amy up here this morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Leslie. And after the last few weeks, there is no better sight than to look out and see all of you. And I am just so grateful for everyone who took the time and came from literally every corner of this country to be here. So thank you. When we started planning this summit months ago, I don't think we could have possibly understood that it would be taking place at such a painful moment on such painful ground. And at a time of such deep hurt and trauma for our community, we're finding ourselves on a site that somehow embodies it more than we ever could have imagined. And we're still very much in that pain and trauma from what's happened over the last few weeks, from the last year and a half, starting on October 7th. Hostages remain and the war is ongoing and lives are lost, and the hate unleashed here at home seems to only grow. And that follows nearly a decade of rising anti-Semitism and extremism that already put our community and so many others into a deeply vulnerable and fearful space, from Pittsburgh and Poway and the broader cycle of extremist violence to record hate crimes and normalized anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and tropes. So the last few weeks have also made something very clear. Your work, this work, of community relations, of bridge building, is quite literally existential. And in particular, I want to share our deep, deep appreciation and admiration for our colleagues who have been on the front lines the last few weeks. Ron, Gila, and the DC JCRC team, many of whom are here. Rebecca and the team at AJC who are here. Of course, the Capitol Jewish Museum staff, as well as Brandon and Liz from Colorado, none of whom asked to have to lead like this over the last few weeks, and all of whom have stepped up beautifully and represented what it means to be a Jewish leader in a moment of crisis. So thank you all. Community relations professionals and leaders are the ones who too often don't have time to grieve, to sit with and process the pain of moments like this, because you're asked to lead. But I know that this room, that all of your colleagues here have the DC and Colorado teams' backs, just like we have each other's backs, however you need. And we're so enormously grateful for what all of you do for your local communities and for all of us. When we look back on this moment in our history as a Jewish people, at rising hate and extremism in our country more broadly, I'm convinced that what happened here just 3 weeks ago and a week and a half later in Boulder will be understood as a flashpoint, as a fork in the road in terms of how we choose to respond as a community. Sarah and Yaron in many ways embodied why we do this work. They were diplomats and peace builders committed to building relationships across differences and divides, no matter what. And they chose to lean into those challenges, to show up over and over again, as hard and as painful as it may have been in this moment for Israel and its people. And their legacies are a reminder of why we all do what we do. And that's all the more important as we see hateful extremists exploit and distort their identities and their legacies to advance their own agendas and narratives, and to tell all of us that what we've experienced in recent weeks and recent years isn't real. And so I want to be very clear. Our community should not be gaslit. We should not be gaslit into believing that our fears and concerns about anti-Semitism in all of its forms aren't real. They are real and they are legitimate, and that is crystal clear right now. And at the same time, we should not be gaslit into thinking that we are totally alone in this fight. Of course, there are those who have let us down and broken our hearts, in some cases many times. We should acknowledge that, but we should also understand that the goal of extremists on both ends of the political spectrum is to make us feel isolated and alone, and we should not allow them to do so. As painful as the last year and a half and the last few weeks have been, we've also seen real allyship in moments when it matters most, like the statement from 60 civil rights groups just last week that we worked on with the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, unequivocally naming the Capitol Jewish Museum and Boulder attacks as anti-Semitic and unacceptable, and demanding real action to confront anti-Semitism and hate. And so when we do the real work of relationship building, not because it's transactional or tit for tat, but because it's the right thing to do, we do see people show up in powerful ways in key moments, and that matters deeply at a time of increasingly normalized anti-Semitism and hate. And that's why we should also not be gaslit into thinking that the solution is to walk away from showing up proudly as Jews, whatever that looks like for each of us in this moment, to walk away from this hard and sacred and critical work of community relations, of coalition and bridge building at a moment when it's never been more urgent, to walk away from the fight against anti-Semitism and from the fight against broader hate and extremism in all their forms, and from protecting the inclusive democracy that we know has been so inherent to our safety and advancement as Jews in this country. Refusing to walk away, though, doesn't mean that we don't evolve, that we don't do what we need to take care of ourselves as Jews, as communal professionals and leaders, as Americans, as vulnerable human beings at this deeply frightening moment for our people and for our country. And so we come together in rooms like this one to be in community with one another, to learn. We consider how we not only build bridges between the Jewish community and others, but to repair the divisions and polarization within our own community. And we reject the binaries that often frame this work in these issues, helping our own communities and our potential allies hold the complexity of this moment, to remain unequivocally committed to our safety as Jews and our values as Jews, even as the most extreme voices tell us it is impossible to do both. And so that's what we're going to do here today. I'm so fortunate to be in this work with all of you and with a team of professionals and leaders at JCPA who I learn from and who make me better each and every day. Our JCPA staff, Rory, Emily, Ben, Jill, Betsy, Shauna, Jalen, Alana, and Rebecca, and our JCPA board, chaired by Leslie Dannin Rosenthal, and so many other incredible leaders around the country. I'll just ask our staff and board to just quickly raise their hands. Find them throughout the day if you don't know them. So grateful for them. Couple quick housekeeping notes, and then we are going to move right into our first panel, somehow right on time, which I did not expect. As was noted, for security reasons, please don't post to social media until after the summit concludes on Thursday, at which point you are, of course, welcome to share and post. Our plenaries, including lunch, will all be in this space right here. Our workshops are all located on the second floor of the building. There are 2 sets of stairs and an elevator bank available, and the JCPA team is available to help direct you. There are also helpful little maps in your folders. And the Capitol Jewish Museum just opened a new exhibit on LGBTQ life, a Jewish life here in Washington, and it's on the 3rd floor. You're all welcome to explore the exhibit at any time throughout the day or during the cocktail hour that we'll be having here at the end of the day. Of course, no food or beverages are allowed in the exhibits or historic sanctuary. And again, we're so grateful to the Capitol Jewish Museum for their partnership on this event, for their leadership, for all they did long before 3 weeks ago, and even more so now. And now I'm thrilled to introduce our first plenary session, which includes some of my own rabbis in the work, some ordained, some not, whose wisdom not only informs, but pushes me to do more and do better as a leader. And I'm grateful that we'll get to learn from them today and from all of our incredible speakers and attendees. Please join me in welcoming Rabbi Shira Stutman, author and co-host of Chutzpah, who will introduce our panel. And we're going to get the plenary set up right here and get started. Thank you so much.